In the next few minutes, you're going to learn exactly how to build confidence that doesn't just feel good, it gets results. This is confidence that makes you take action without hesitation, handle challenges without fear, and show up fully in every situation. By the end of this video, you'll have clear steps you can start using today to strengthen your mindset, control your emotions, and make powerful decisions every single day. You'll discover practical ways to face fear, turn rejection into momentum, master your mental state, and act with precision when it matters most. Every tip is designed to help you grow, push past limits, and create habits that last. If you want to take control of your confidence and transform the way you move through life, stay with this video all the way through. And don't forget to subscribe to Audiobook Shift for more actionable strategies that work. Number 1. Master fear through daily exposure. Fear is the silent architect of mediocrity. It builds invisible walls around potential, convinces the mind that safety is noble, and slowly teaches a person to settle. Most people don't realize that fear isn't their enemy, it's their teacher. It exposes the exact limits of their comfort zone, pointing like a compass toward what must be faced. To master fear, one must not wait for it to disappear, but walk directly into it, one deliberate step at a time. Confidence is not born from the absence of fear. It is sculpted through the daily act of confronting it. Every person has moments where fear dictates action, or more often, inaction. The hesitation before speaking up in a meeting, the racing heart before sharing an idea, the internal debate before taking a risk that could lead to rejection. These are the quiet battles that define the course of a life. Those who yield to fear live half alive, trapped within invisible boundaries of what if. Those who face fear daily, not in grand gestures but in small, consistent acts, become unstoppable. Mastering fear is a practice, not a moment. Exposure is the process of turning what terrifies into what is familiar. The mind only fears what it doesn't understand or control. When you step into fear repeatedly, the unknown becomes known, and the power of fear weakens. Just as muscles grow through resistance, courage grows through exposure. Each encounter with fear is a mental workout, painful, uncomfortable, but transformative. The person who embraces this discomfort becomes stronger, calmer, and increasingly unshakable. Fear thrives in avoidance. The more one avoids it, the more it grows. Avoidance feeds fear like oxygen feeds fire. The key is to reverse this cycle, to replace avoidance with exposure. Start small. If social anxiety grips you, begin by making eye contact with strangers. If fear of failure holds you back, set micro goals that risk minor setbacks. If fear of judgment silences you, practice expressing opinions even when uncertain. Each exposure rewires the brain's association with fear, turning panic into familiarity. Over time, what once triggered paralysis becomes routine. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It whispers rational excuses. It's not the right time, I'm not ready, I'll start when I feel more confident. But confidence never precedes action, it follows it. Waiting for courage is waiting for a train that never arrives. The act of doing creates the confidence you seek. When you repeatedly act despite fear, your subconscious learns a new truth. You can survive discomfort. Once that truth becomes ingrained, fear loses control over your decisions. Daily exposure is not about recklessness. It's not about running into danger without reason. It's about controlled confrontation. Identify your fears, break them into manageable parts, and face them deliberately. Each day, challenge one small fear. Send a message you've been avoiding. Seek an uncomfortable truth. Try something unfamiliar that stirs anxiety. These are the building blocks of dangerous confidence, the kind of confidence that can't be shaken by circumstance. There's a profound difference between people who experience fear and those who are ruled by it. The difference is not talent, intelligence, or luck. It's exposure. The ones who seem fearless are not without fear. They've simply met it so often that it no longer controls them. Repeated exposure rewires the nervous system's response. What once triggered panic becomes manageable, even energizing. That is how professional athletes perform under pressure, how leaders speak with conviction, and how creators put their work into the world despite criticism. Each day offers opportunities for exposure training. It may be as simple as starting a conversation, setting a boundary, or trying something unfamiliar. The discomfort that arises is the signal that growth is occurring. Fear is not an obstacle to progress, it is the threshold of it. The stronger the resistance, the more significant the reward waiting behind it. Most people interpret fear as a stop sign. The wise see it as an arrow pointing forward. To master fear through daily exposure, one must also master perception. Fear magnifies possibilities of failure, while minimizing potential for success. It paints worst-case scenarios in vivid color, while dulling the image of triumph. Reframing is the skill that neutralizes this distortion. Instead of asking, "What if this goes wrong?" ask, "What if this goes right?" Instead of thinking, "I can't handle this," remind yourself, "I can handle discomfort, and I'll grow because of it." Mental framing determines emotional response. Exposure also demands awareness. The purpose isn't to eliminate fear entirely, but to understand it deeply. Notice where fear lives in your body, the tightness in your chest, the racing pulse, the quickened breath. These sensations are signals, not threats. The body prepares you for action, not retreat. Recognize the sensations, breathe through them, and proceed anyway. Over time, your physiology adapts. What once triggered panic becomes a familiar rhythm of excitement. That is the essence of mastery. Not to feel no fear, but to act in harmony with it. Fear loses its grip when faced with truth. Often the worst outcome we imagine never occurs. Yet, even if it does, it's rarely as catastrophic as our minds predict. Exposure reveals this reality. After each confrontation, confidence compounds. You realize that pain, embarrassment, or failure did not destroy you. You discover resilience, a quiet strength that builds from experience. This realization becomes addictive. Soon, you start to seek challenges instead of avoiding them, because you've learned that on the other side of fear lies expansion. There's a psychological phenomenon called habituation, the process by which repeated exposure to a stimulus reduces emotional reaction. It's the same reason a cold shower feels unbearable on day one, but invigorating after a week. The same principle applies to fear. The first exposure is intense, but each repetition dulls the edge. With time, fear transforms from a threat to a signal of growth. That shift changes everything. What once seemed terrifying becomes an invitation to evolve. To apply this daily, create a ritual of courage. Each morning, identify one action that triggers fear or discomfort, and commit to doing it before the day ends. Keep a record of these acts, a fear log. Each entry becomes proof of your evolution. Reviewing them will remind you that you are capable of more than your mind once believed. The evidence of your courage becomes a foundation for unshakable confidence. Over time, this practice will harden your mindset like tempered steel. Fear cannot survive consistent exposure. The more often you meet it, the less power it holds. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. The monsters you imagine disappear under illumination. Fear thrives in the shadows of avoidance, but when faced directly, it dissolves. Daily exposure is the light switch. Turn it on every day, and fear loses its mystery. The act of showing up repeatedly, even in small ways, builds the kind of inner stability that no setback can destroy. The person who masters fear does not seek comfort. They seek clarity. They understand that fear highlights what matters most. The things that scare you often point to your deepest values, speaking truth because integrity matters, taking risks because growth matters, standing alone because freedom matters. When you align fear exposure with purpose, it becomes sacred work. It's no longer about defeating fear. It's about fulfilling potential. Confidence is dangerous not because it harms others, but because it liberates you from dependence on approval, validation, or comfort. Dangerous confidence is built through 1,000 small victories over fear. It's the quiet, unshakable belief that you can face whatever arises. It makes you unpredictable to the world because no external force can dictate your action. That kind of confidence intimidates insecurity and inspires greatness. To master fear through daily exposure is to commit to growth over safety, to choose truth over comfort, and to live with an open heart even when it trembles. It's a discipline of facing life fully without hiding, without retreating. Each act of exposure adds another layer of courage, another degree of freedom. Over time, this daily practice shapes not only your confidence, but your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to be brave. You become bravery itself. When fear appears tomorrow, welcome it. Feel it rise, acknowledge it, and step forward anyway. Each time you do, the world expands a little more, and so do you. The path to dangerous confidence is not a single leap. It's 1,000 fearless steps taken one day at a time. Number 2, reprogram self-talk for dominance. The words spoken inside the mind determine the boundaries of personal power. Every thought forms an invisible command, shaping identity, emotion, and behavior. Long before action occurs, language writes the code of performance. The person who dominates their inner voice dominates their reality. Most people are unaware that they live under the constant influence of unconscious dialogue, sentences formed from past pain, criticism, and inherited doubt. These internal scripts loop endlessly, whispering limitations that feel like truth. To reprogram self-talk for dominance is to reclaim authorship of the mind's language and transform it into a weapon of clarity and control. Self-talk is not merely harmless chatter. It is the architect of confidence or the engineer of insecurity. When you repeatedly tell yourself that you are not enough, the mind obeys. It filters reality to confirm that belief, showing you evidence that supports the lie. When you consciously change that language, the entire internal landscape shifts. The brain is malleable. It rewires according to repetition. Each word you use either strengthens your capacity or sabotages. The key is to become aware of what you're saying internally and deliberately choose words that serve your purpose rather than weaken it. Most people wait to feel confident before speaking confidently to themselves, but the relationship works in reverse. The language creates the feeling. When you speak with conviction, your physiology changes. Your posture aligns, breathing slows, and focus sharpens. The body listens to the voice within. That means your self-talk is not abstract motivation. It's a physiological command system. Every dominant performer, from athletes to leaders, cultivates inner language that reinforces composure and precision under pressure. Dominance begins in the dialogue between thoughts and actions. To reprogram self-talk, awareness must come first. The mind often repeats inherited narratives, voices of teachers, parents, peers, or past failures. These echoes are not facts. They are memories pretending to be truth. Begin by observing them. Notice the tone, the words, and the emotion behind your internal dialogue. Does your self-talk command strength or permission to shrink? Awareness is exposure. When you see the thought clearly, it loses power. Observation turns automatic language into conscious choice. Once aware, interruption follows. The mind is a creature of pattern. It runs the same scripts because they're familiar. To break this cycle, disrupt it immediately when negative dialogue arises. Replace "I can't handle this" with "I've handled worse." Replace "I'm not ready" with "I'm becoming stronger each moment." This replacement must happen in real time, not later in reflection. The faster you intervene, the faster the brain rewires. Over time, the replacement becomes automatic, and new mental patterns take root. The tone of self-talk matters as much as the content. A dominant inner voice is calm, steady, and precise. It doesn't scream or beg, it instructs. It tells the mind what to do as a commander directs troops. When you speak to yourself with certainty, the mind obeys. Confidence is built not only from positive language, but from decisive tone. Weak language creates hesitation. Strong language creates movement. Speak internally the way a general would speak before battle, with clarity, assurance, and intent. Emotion amplifies repetition. The words you repeat with strong emotion carve deeper neural pathways. This is why emotional self-talk during moments of fear or frustration can either fortify or fracture your mental state. When anger or doubt rises, channel it into constructive dialogue instead of collapse. Replace "I always mess up" with "This pressure is proof I'm expanding." Attach feeling to the words that serve your purpose. The combination of repetition and emotion is the alchemy of reprogramming. Reprogramming self-talk also requires the elimination of linguistic weakness. Words like maybe, try, or hope dilute certainty. Dominant language leaves no room for hesitation. Replace I'll try with I will. Replace I hope with I expect. The subconscious mind responds to clarity. It doesn't understand uncertainty. It only understands command. Speak to yourself in definitive terms, as if your mind were a soldier, waiting for direction. The strength of your language becomes the strength of your decisions. Visualization reinforces this transformation. When you pair dominant self-talk with mental imagery, the brain cannot distinguish imagination from experience. Visualize yourself performing with composure, speaking with power, acting with precision. Accompany that image with verbal affirmation. Tell yourself, this is who I am now. The mind will adapt to match the picture, and the language. Repetition transforms identity. Soon the words you speak internally stop feeling like lies and start feeling like memory. The environment around you influences self-talk more than most realize. The people you engage with, the content you consume, and the tone of your surroundings either strengthen or erode your internal dialogue. Protect your input fiercely. If conversations, media, or social spaces amplify insecurity, step away. Dominant self-talk cannot survive in a toxic soundscape. Create an environment where words of growth and challenge replace complaints and comparison. The outer world feeds the inner one. Reprogramming also requires a shift in focus. The average mind obsesses over flaws and failures, reinforcing them through language. Dominant self-talk reverses this focus. It directs attention toward improvement and progress. Instead of repeating what went wrong, analyze what was learned. Instead of dwelling on setbacks, describe the next action. The language of a disciplined mind revolves around solutions. Each phrase should orient toward movement, not stagnation. Over time, the internal dialogue becomes a map that always leads forward. Affirmations, when used mechanically, lose power. But when crafted personally and spoken with intent, they become internal architecture. A useful affirmation is specific, believable, and aligned with your goals. For example, instead of saying I am confident, say I stay calm under pressure. This specificity gives the mind direction. Repetition turns this statement into reflex. Eventually, when pressure arises, the brain recalls the instruction and the body follows suit. The aim is not to trick yourself, but to train yourself. To sustain dominance, consistency is essential. Self-talk reprogramming isn't a one-time mental exercise. It's a daily discipline. Every morning, before the noise of the world intrudes, speak intentionally. Establish your mental tone for the day. Every night before sleep, review how you spoke to yourself during challenges. Adjust as needed. Over weeks and months, this daily calibration builds a new baseline of confidence. The transformation is subtle at first, but exponential over time. It's also crucial to remove the internal critic that disguises itself as realism. Many believe that criticizing themselves keeps them grounded. In truth, it keeps them small. Constructive self-evaluation is useful. Self-condemnation is poison. The mind performs according to the story it's told. If the story is that you are perpetually lacking, the outcome will match. Replace the critic with a coach. Instead of saying you're terrible at this, say you're improving. Adjust this part next time. The shift from judgment to guidance changes the entire trajectory of performance. Dominant self-talk thrives on truth, not delusion. It doesn't deny weakness. It acknowledges it without surrender. It sounds like I'm not perfect yet, but I'm advancing. This honesty keeps confidence rooted in reality. Arrogance is insecurity pretending to be strength. Dominance is calm belief, built on discipline. The goal isn't to inflate ego, but to align language with growth. Speak truth with power, not fantasy with fragility. Reprogramming also extends to moments of silence. The absence of words is still self-talk. The emotion you carry when nothing is spoken reveals your deepest narrative. Cultivate inner calm in stillness. When the mind quiets, observe what's surface. If tension or self-doubt appears, meet it with patience, not resistance. Replace quiet anxiety with quiet certainty. Dominance is not loud, it is composed. The strongest internal voice often speaks in still confidence. Over time, reprogram self-talk alters perception. Challenges stop feeling like threats and start feeling like opportunities to demonstrate control. Setbacks transform into data. Criticism loses its sting. This shift changes not only performance but identity. You no longer act confident. You become someone for whom confidence is default. Every thought, word, and decision aligns toward progress. The old language of fear fades like static, replaced by steady internal clarity. When you master this art, self-talk becomes an ally instead of an enemy. The mind begins to echo certainty, discipline, and resilience. Each day as you speak to yourself with precision, you sculpt mental strength that cannot be broken by opinion or circumstance. Reprogramming self-talk for dominance is not about pretending to be fearless. It's about constructing a mental system so powerful that fear becomes background noise. Confidence built this way doesn't depend on luck or mood. It's engineered through conscious language. The moment your internal voice aligns with power, life responds. Opportunities that once intimidated you now feel attainable. People sense your composure before you speak. You act with decisiveness because your mind no longer argues against you. That is the true meaning of dominance. Not arrogance or control over others, but complete mastery over your own narrative. When your words inside your head are disciplined, courageous, and unwavering, the world outside begins to mirror that energy. The battle for confidence ends not when fear disappears, but when the voice within becomes impossible to doubt. Number 3. Turn rejection into unstoppable momentum. Rejection is not the end of progress. It is the forge in which strength and resilience are created. Every time a door closes, the echo of that moment can either become a lifelong wound or the spark that ignites determination. The difference lies entirely in perception. People who thrive in the face of rejection do not see it as personal failure. They see it as redirection, as evidence that they dared to act while others hesitated. Rejection, when embraced, becomes momentum. It turns pain into propulsion and disappointment into fuel. It teaches the art of persistence and the discipline of forward motion. The instinctive reaction to rejection is withdrawal. The ego tightens. The mind replays the moment, searching for flaws or justifications. This cycle traps many people in stagnation. Yet, in that very discomfort, lies the raw material for transformation. Every rejection strips away illusions of control and forces confrontation with truth about skill, effort, timing, or mindset. This clarity, though painful, is priceless. Those who learn to analyze rejection rather than resist it discover insights that propel them far beyond those who seek only approval. Momentum begins with reframing. The event of rejection is neutral. The meaning attached to it determines its impact. Instead of thinking, "I failed," interpret it as, "I received feedback from reality." Reality is not cruel. It tells you what needs refinement, what strategy must evolve, what energy must increase. When rejection becomes information instead of insult, the emotional charge dissipates, leaving room for movement. You are no longer fighting your past. You are learning from it. Turning rejection into fuel requires emotional alchemy, the ability to convert hurt into hunger. That transformation happens when you stop chasing validation and start chasing mastery. Approval from others is fragile currency. It evaporates when conditions change. But mastery, once earned, cannot be taken away. Every rejection becomes a signal to sharpen your craft. When someone says no, it's an invitation to become undeniable. The next version of you should make that same rejection impossible to repeat. Momentum thrives on direction. After rejection, many fall into paralysis because they dwell on what went wrong instead of what comes next. The antidote is immediate motion. Take the energy of disappointment and channel it into focused action within hours, not days. Write the next proposal, make the next call, practice the next skill. The faster you move after rejection, the less time doubt has to build a nest in your mind. Action neutralizes rumination. The body in motion rewires the mind toward progress. Rejection also tests attachment. Often people feel shattered because they tied their worth to an outcome, a job, a relationship, an opportunity. When that outcome collapses, identity shakes. The solution is detachment. View outcomes as experiments, not definitions. Each attempt is data, not destiny. When you separate self-worth from result, rejection loses its sting. You become free to experiment endlessly, to fail publicly without shame, and to evolve without hesitation. That freedom is the foundation of unstoppable momentum. The most resilient minds understand that rejection is proof of effort. To be rejected means you participated, you took a swing, you dared to reach. Those who never hear no are usually those who never tried anything meaningful. Each rejection is evidence that you are stretching beyond safety. Collect them as trophies. Each one signifies courage, not weakness. Over time, those rejections become stepping stones, each one positioning you closer to the next opening that fits. There is also a deeper lesson. Rejection reveals what truly matters. When denied something superficial, you forget quickly. When denied something deeply important, you fight harder. That instinct exposes what your heart values most. Use it as a compass. If rejection stings deeply, it means you care deeply. Channel that care into persistence. Pain becomes direction. Momentum grows when you use rejection as confirmation that you are pursuing something worth your energy. To turn rejection into unstoppable momentum, emotional regulation is essential. The first wave of rejection often brings anger, shame, or self-doubt. These emotions are natural but temporary. Breathe through them rather than drown in them. Label the emotion without judgment. Then move your focus toward the lesson. Emotional control is not suppression, it's strategic redirection. When you respond calmly, you retain the mental clarity needed to extract wisdom from the event. Momentum also grows through storytelling. The internal narrative you tell yourself after rejection determines whether you shrink or expand. If the story is "I'm not good enough," the journey ends. If the story is "I'm becoming stronger because of this," the journey accelerates. The narrative must always end in empowerment. Train your mind to interpret rejection as resistance training for character. Each setback builds the endurance required to sustain future success. The story becomes a loop of progress instead of a spiral of self-doubt. Rejection exposes endurance thresholds. Many people quit not because they lack talent, but because they misinterpret delay as denial. Success often comes to those who simply stayed in the game longer. Momentum builds through consistency. Each attempt compounds the lessons of the last. The more rejection you face without retreating, the closer you move to inevitability. Persistence converts probability into certainty. Every no you outlast becomes one less barrier between you and achievement. There is also the power of strategic reflection. After rejection, analyze with precision but without emotion. Ask questions that guide growth. What did I control in this situation? What can I improve before the next attempt? What patterns do I notice in these outcomes? This analytical approach transforms rejection from punishment into education. Over time, your process becomes sharper, your timing better, and your delivery more effective. Rejection becomes an instructor, not an adversary. Momentum cannot exist without forward focus. Avoid the trap of proving people wrong. Revenge-driven motivation burns quickly. Purpose-driven momentum endures. The goal is not to silence critics, but to fulfill potential. When energy is directed inward, not outward, rejection becomes irrelevant. The mind no longer measures worth through comparison. It measures through growth. That shift transforms competition into creation and keeps momentum pure and self-sustaining. Resilience also comes from gratitude. Though it sounds paradoxical, learning to thank rejection rewires the emotional response to it. Gratitude reframes the event as necessary preparation for future success. When you can genuinely say, "That rejection protected me or refined me," you detach from bitterness. Bitterness chains energy to the past. Gratitude releases it toward the future. The heart that forgives rejection quickly moves faster than the one that clings to resentment. Rejection sharpens humility. It reminds you that effort does not guarantee reward, that timing and perspective play their roles. This humility keeps the ego in balance. preventing overconfidence from sabotaging discipline. When you accept that rejection is part of the natural rhythm of growth, you stop fearing it. You begin to expect it, even welcome it, knowing it is a marker of progress. That acceptance transforms anticipation of pain into readiness for opportunity. One of the most powerful habits after rejection is reflection paired with renewal. Write down the lesson, identify what needs refinement, and then immediately commit to another attempt. Each new attempt is a declaration that rejection did not define you. This repetitive pattern of reflection and action builds psychological momentum. Each iteration refines skill, confidence, and resilience. Eventually, you reach a point where rejection loses all emotional weight. It becomes routine feedback in the pursuit of excellence. Momentum also grows through environment. Surround yourself with people who understand the value of persistence, who see rejection as a milestone rather than a verdict. Energy is contagious. Spend time around those who move forward despite obstacles. Their mindset will reinforce your own. Rejection becomes lighter when witnessed among others walking the same path. Shared struggle breeds shared strength. The ultimate transformation occurs when rejection ceases to be personal. You stop viewing it as an attack on identity and start seeing it as a natural filtering mechanism guiding you toward alignment. Not every door is meant to open. Some remain closed to redirect your focus toward paths more suitable for your growth. When you trust this process, rejection becomes a navigational tool rather than an emotional wound. Turning rejection into unstoppable momentum is a matter of rhythm. Every time you fall, rise faster. Every time you're denied, adapt quicker. Every time doubt whispers, move anyway. Over time, this repetition builds an unbreakable pattern of resilience. You no longer wait for approval. You create motion from within. The pain of rejection transforms into the pleasure of pursuit. The energy once wasted on self-pity becomes the fuel for action. Eventually, momentum becomes your identity. You move not because circumstances are easy, but because stillness feels unnatural. You see rejection as a spark, not a scar. Each no becomes a reminder of your willingness to try again, to improve, to continue. That mindset cannot be stopped because it does not rely on the outcome. It feeds on effort itself. In that state, rejection loses all power, and what remains is unstoppable forward motion driven by purpose, persistence, and inner strength. Number 4. Command presence using silence strategically. Power is often misunderstood as noise. The louder, the stronger. The more words, the greater the influence. Yet true command rarely comes from volume. It comes from silence, the kind that carries weight, control, and presence. Silence, when used with intention, radiates authority. It holds the attention of a room more effectively than shouting ever could. The individual who knows how to harness silence projects certainty. They do not rush to fill the air with explanations or defense. They let their composure speak in ways words never can. Strategic silence is not passive. It is deliberate restraint, the art of saying everything without uttering a word. Every interaction is an exchange of energy. Some people scatter their power through constant talking, nervous laughter, or unnecessary justification. Others conserve it through stillness. When you speak less, every word gains weight. When you pause before responding, people listen differently. They lean in, sensing confidence beneath the calm. The silence between your words becomes a field of control. Your composure draws focus and signals mastery of emotion. Presence is not built through performance, but through control of expression. In moments of tension or negotiation, silence becomes a psychological weapon. Most people are uncomfortable with it. They interpret it as disapproval or rejection and rush to fill it, often revealing more than they intend. The person who can hold silence without anxiety gains leverage. By waiting, by simply breathing through the discomfort, you force the other person to reveal their position, their weakness, or their intent. Silence becomes your instrument for reading human behavior. It creates space where truth surfaces naturally, without confrontation. Commanding presence with silence begins with awareness of energy. Before speaking, sense the atmosphere around you. Observe body language, tone, and rhythm. Rather than reacting impulsively, anchor yourself in stillness. This pause not only centers your thoughts but signals self-possession. People subconsciously read your calm as competence. In a chaotic world where everyone rushes to respond, the one who moves slowly appears in control. That is the essence of presence, to remain unmoved when others are frantic. Silence also enhances observation. When you are quiet, your perception sharpens. You notice details, the flicker of doubt in someone's eyes, the tension in their shoulders, the inconsistency between words and tone. You collect data that talkers miss. Knowledge gathered through quiet observation gives you strategic advantage. You can respond with precision rather than emotion. The less you speak, the more you understand. The more you understand, the more power you hold. In leadership, silence communicates strength. A leader who constantly seeks to be heard breeds noise, not clarity. A leader who listens deeply and speaks selectively creates impact. When words are rare, they carry authority. People remember them. They measure their meaning. The leader who uses silence wisely teaches by example that discipline is more powerful than expression. Control over speech reflects control over mind. In personal interactions, silence shapes emotional tone. When someone attempts to provoke or insult, silence becomes armor. Instead of reacting defensively, you hold the space. This non-response confuses and diffuses aggression. The one who maintains calm disarms chaos. Silence says, "You cannot pull me into your storm." It establishes boundaries without confrontation. The quiet confidence of restraint speaks volumes about inner stability. To use silence strategically, one must also master internal quiet. External silence is meaningless if the mind is loud. True command arises when thoughts are organized, emotions balanced, and intent clear. Meditation, reflection, and conscious breathing cultivate this state. When your internal world is still, your external silence feels powerful rather than empty. You no longer pause because you lack words. You pause because your words deserve precision. Timing is the heart of silent influence. Pausing before speaking gives your words gravity. Allowing a moment after you finish lets your message resonate. People instinctively fill empty space with thought. When you leave silence after your words, it forces reflection. The audience becomes active participants in your message rather than passive receivers. This subtle control of rhythm transforms communication from mere exchange into influence. Strategic silence also nurtures humility. It reminds you that not every opinion must be voiced, not every thought deserves expression. The world rewards those who can hold back what others rush to release. Silence teaches patience, restraint, and discipline, the pillars of authority. It frees you from the compulsion to prove, explain, or persuade. The person secure in their value does not chase validation through words. They allow silence to do the heavy lifting. In relationships, silence can build intimacy. Constant conversation creates comfort, but shared quiet creates connection. Being at ease in silence with another person reflects trust and respect. It shows that presence matters more than performance. Silence in companionship communicates depth that words often dilute. It allows understanding to unfold beyond language, revealing sincerity without effort. Silence can also be a mirror. When used intentionally, it reflects to others their own insecurity or need for approval. People reveal themselves in how they handle quiet. The one who scrambles to fill it fears emptiness. The one who embraces it holds confidence. Through silence, you can observe human nature unfold in real time. It becomes a diagnostic tool for emotional intelligence. There is an elegance and restraint that cannot be faked. In meetings, arguments, or negotiations, the calm observer often holds the most control. Speaking sparingly suggests authority. Reacting impulsively signals weakness. When you pause before replying, you project thoughtfulness. The message received is, "I am not easily moved." This subtle perception earns respect and curiosity. People begin to measure their words around you. Your silence shapes the behavior of others. To practice commanding presence through silence, begin by reducing unnecessary speech. Resist the urge to comment on everything. Let others fill the air while you conserve your words. Notice how your awareness increases when you listen more than you speak. Gradually, you will find that people begin to seek your opinion with greater seriousness. The scarcity of your words makes them valuable. Next, train yourself to embrace pauses during conversation. When someone finishes speaking, wait a heartbeat before responding. This moment communicates attention and composure. It allows space for nuance to emerge. Over time, this habit rewires your communication style. You stop reacting and start responding with clarity. Pausing becomes your signature, a mark of grounded intelligence. Silence also plays a vital role in persuasion. The most compelling arguments are not delivered in a rush, but in measured cadence. When you present an idea, let it breathe. Silence between statements gives your audience time to absorb, visualize, and agree internally. This unspoken engagement builds alignment without force. The listener feels respected rather than overwhelmed. Influence built on calm authority lasts longer than influence built on verbal pressure. In conflict, silence disarms escalation. When tempers rise, words become weapons. The one who chooses silence refuses to feed the fire. A composed presence acts as a stabilizing force, shifting the emotional tone of the exchange. People may not remember what you said, but they always remember how they felt in your presence. Calm silence leaves an imprint of respect and composure long after the moment has passed. There is also a creative power in silence. Innovation often emerges, not during constant thought, but in moments of quiet reflection. When the mind is still, connections form effortlessly. Strategic silence creates mental space for insight. Those who learn to withdraw into stillness periodically access deeper levels of clarity and creativity. The quiet becomes a wellspring of inspiration rather than emptiness. To command presence using silence, discipline must be paired with intention. Silence without purpose can seem distant or cold. Silence used consciously conveys depth and awareness. It requires knowing when to speak and when to hold back. The balance lies in awareness of context. Assert when clarity is needed. Withdraw when impact grows through restraint. Like a skilled musician, you learn that pauses are as important as notes. Ultimately, silence becomes a form of language. It speaks confidence, patience, and control. It allows truth to emerge without interference. It signals mastery over impulse and mastery over self. Those who wield silence skillfully do not need to demand attention. It is given to them naturally. The room adjusts to their rhythm. Their presence alters the atmosphere, not through force, but through focus. Commanding presence through silence is a lifelong discipline. It begins with the awareness of how often you speak from insecurity and how rarely from intention. Gradually, through practice, you strip away unnecessary noise until only deliberate expression remains. You discover that silence is not emptiness. It is power restrained, wisdom waiting, strength in its purest form. When you learn to hold it with confidence, you no longer chase influence. You become influence itself. Number 5, detach emotions, control mental state. Emotions are powerful forces. They can sharpen your instincts or blur your judgment. The difference lies in control. When you detach your emotions from your decisions, you begin to move from reaction to mastery. Detachment is not about becoming cold or unfeeling. It's about learning to separate emotion from impulse so that your state of mind remains steady no matter what happens around you. Most people allow the world to dictate how they feel. They react to criticism, praise, failure, and uncertainty as if they have no choice. But when you choose to command your inner world, the external world loses its grip on you. Detachment begins with awareness. The moment you feel triggered, pause. Notice the emotion without judgment. Whether it's anger, fear, jealousy, or excitement, observe it like a passing cloud rather than becoming it. This space between stimulus and response is where control is born. Without that pause, you are a puppet to your emotional chemistry. Dopamine, cortisol, adrenaline pulling invisible strings. But awareness cuts those strings. It allows you to act from clarity instead of chaos. To control your mental state, you must first understand that thoughts and emotions feed each other. A single fearful thought can spiral into a flood of anxiety. A single empowering thought can shift your physiology instantly. Mastery lies in catching the moment before the spiral begins. The person who governs their mind can walk into any situation and remain grounded. Chaos outside does not equal chaos inside. The storm rages, but you stand untouched at its center. That is the difference between living at the mercy of emotion and living as its master. Every emotion carries energy. That energy can either control you or be redirected toward purpose. Anger, for example, can be destructive when unrestrained, but when harnessed, it becomes intensity, focus, and drive. Fear can paralyze, but when acknowledged and rechanneled, it sharpens your instincts. Detachment does not mean suppression, it means transmutation. You take raw emotion and shape it into power rather than letting it consume you. You stop resisting what you feel and instead choose where to direct it. Most people confuse emotional detachment with apathy. Apathy is indifference. Detachment is awareness without attachment. It means you still feel deeply, but you do not allow those feelings to dominate your reasoning. You can empathize without drowning in others' pain. You can experience loss without losing yourself. You can enjoy victory without becoming addicted to validation. This level of composure creates psychological freedom. You are no longer enslaved by external events because your equilibrium comes from within. To reach this state, train yourself to question your internal dialogue. Every emotion begins with a thought, often unconscious. By interrogating those thoughts, you reclaim control. When anger arises, ask what belief is being threatened. When fear appears, ask, what story am I telling myself? When sadness lingers, ask what expectation was unmet. This self-inquiry dissolves the illusion that emotions simply happen to you. They are reactions built on perception. Change perception, and emotion follows. Your mind can be conditioned like any muscle. Meditation, breathwork, and visualization are not spiritual luxuries. They are tools of psychological control. The ability to slow your breathing during tension signals to your nervous system that you are safe. That one shift changes the chemicals in your body, lowering cortisol and raising clarity. Over time, this practice rewires your responses. You stop reacting impulsively and start choosing deliberately. It is not about erasing emotion. It's about mastering response. When you detach emotionally, you gain perspective. Situations that once felt catastrophic shrink into manageable challenges. Criticism becomes feedback instead of insult. Failure becomes data instead of defeat. Detachment gives you the distance to see the full picture, rather than getting trapped inside one frame. From this vantage point, every problem becomes solvable because you are no longer emotionally blinded. The mind sees clearly when emotion is balanced. In high-pressure moments, public speaking, negotiations, confrontation, your emotions will try to take control. Your pulse quickens, your breath shortens, your thoughts race. The untrained person panics. The trained one slows down, observes the sensations, and commands the body to relax. They breathe deeper, ground their feet, and detach from the noise of anxiety. This shift in physiology changes the outcome because calmness communicates authority. When your mental state is steady, people feel it. They trust your presence, even if they don't understand why. Emotional control is not about pretending you don't care. It's about recognizing that caring too much about the wrong things weakens you. Caring about every opinion, every outcome, every temporary setback drains energy that could fuel your purpose. Detachment focuses that energy. You stop chasing emotional highs or avoiding emotional lows. You become centered in purpose rather than tossed by emotion. The highs no longer intoxicate you, and the lows no longer destroy you. There's a difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is automatic. Response is conscious. When insulted, a reactive person retaliates immediately. A detached person pauses, processes, and decides whether it's even worth engagement. Often silence becomes the most powerful answer. Detachment gives you the discipline to protect your energy from unnecessary battles. You no longer feel compelled to prove your worth. Through reaction, you understand that composure is the loudest statement of strength. Training detachment requires exposure to discomfort. You must place yourself in situations that challenge your patience, ego, and control. Sit with boredom instead of seeking distraction. Face criticism without defending yourself. Allow uncertainty without rushing for control. Each experience strengthens your ability to remain unmoved. Emotional detachment grows through deliberate friction. It's forged in the fire of restraint. You do not become unshakable by avoiding challenges. You become unshakable by enduring them without losing your center. Detachment also means letting go of the illusion of control over others. You cannot dictate how people behave, what they think, or how they feel about you. The only real control you have is over your own response. Once you accept this truth, your mind relaxes. You stop wasting energy trying to manipulate outcomes and instead focus on mastering your state. Ironically, when you stop clinging, things begin to align more naturally because your energy is no longer desperate. In moments of emotional intensity, remember that no feeling is permanent. Emotions rise and fall like waves. The more you resist them, the stronger they crash. When you observe them calmly, they pass with less turbulence. This understanding changes your relationship with pain, stress, and desire. You begin to experience emotions as temporary weather rather than identity. This shift transforms suffering into learning and chaos into clarity. Detach from outcomes. Focus on process. The more you fixate on results, the more your emotions swing between excitement and despair. But when your identity is rooted in effort and growth, you remain steady. You act with intention and allow outcomes to unfold. This is the mindset of mastery. You control what you can, accept what you cannot, and stay calm through both. Your mental state becomes your greatest weapon. When others lose composure, you stay level. When others panic, you strategize. When others crumble under pressure, you breathe deeper and think sharper. The ability to regulate your internal world gives you dominance in every external one. Success, relationships, influence, all are built on mental steadiness. People trust those who remain calm when others collapse. Detachment doesn't make you robotic, it makes you precise. You begin to feel more deeply because you're not overwhelmed by feeling. You think more clearly because thoughts are no longer hijacked by emotion. You make stronger decisions because fear no longer clouds them. You experience life fully, but without being ruled by its fluctuations. This is emotional intelligence at its highest form, not suppression, but sovereignty. Every time you detach from an emotional reaction, you reclaim power. Each moment you choose calm over chaos. You reinforce mental strength. Over time, this becomes your natural state, an unshakable inner stillness that cannot be disturbed by temporary storms. You begin to realize that control is not about dominance over others but mastery of yourself. The real battlefield is internal, and victory belongs to those who can govern their emotions while others are enslaved by theirs. When you reach this level of control, you become dangerous, not because you are aggressive, but because you are untriggerable. You cannot be manipulated through fear, praise, or pressure. Your peace becomes armor. Your focus becomes weaponry. You navigate life with quiet confidence, aware that nothing outside can disturb the fortress you've built within. That is the power of detachment, the art of mastering emotion without losing humanity, of controlling the mind without closing the heart, and of standing unshaken while the world moves around you. Number 6. Create alter ego for fearless performance. An alter ego is not escape. It is a tool crafted with intention to perform when ordinary identity hesitates. It functions like a professional uniform for the mind, something that, when donned, shifts posture, voice, and decision-making toward purpose. Actors use characters to access emotions on cue. Athletes call on personas to push past pain. High performers borrow these techniques to behave differently under pressure, turning inner resistance into a reliable method for action. The goal is not to hide who is real, but to access a version of self that is braver, clearer, and more focused when it matters most. Begin by naming the persona. A name anchors the shift in the nervous system and separates roles cleanly. Choose a name that carries the qualities desired: strength, calm, precision. This ought to be a single decisive word or short phrase that the brain can hold easily. When the pressure builds, speaking that name mentally acts like flipping a switch. It signals a new set of rules to the body and mind. The name is not superficial branding. It is a cue for immediate behavioral recalibration. Design the backstory deliberately. The persona needs reasons for courage and standards for behavior. Craft a brief narrative explaining where this version learned discipline, how it responds to threats, and what it values above comfort. This story should be concise, 2 to 3 lines that can be recalled instantly. When fear arrives, the story supplies context. This persona does not flinch because its origin required resilience. The brain responds to story. Habit forms faster when narrative and practice connect. Anchor the persona to physical cues. Posture, breath, and small rituals form the bridge between intention and action. Decide on a specific posture, shoulders back, chest open, chin level that the persona holds. Couple that posture with a breathing pattern, such as slow inhales for 4 counts and controlled exhales for 6. Add a micro ritual, buttoning a cuff, tapping knuckles, or placing a hand over the sternum. These physical markers create a predictable chain reaction. The body moves, the physiology shifts, the mind follows. Repetition converts this chain into automatic response in high-stress moments. Shape the voice. The tone and cadence used under pressure influence perception and internal state. Practice speaking with measured volume, deliberate pacing, and clear enunciation in rehearsal. Record small clips of the persona reading a short manifesto and listen back. The sound of the voice will become familiar and easier to summon when actual stakes appear. Vocal practice also reduces tremor and fills silence with authority rather than anxiety. Set clear behavioral rules for the alter ego. These are concrete commands. Answer questions briefly. Refuse to apologize unnecessarily. Ask clarifying questions when attacked. Maintain eye contact for 3 seconds before responding. The rules remove confusion and replace improvisation with disciplined response. Decisions become easier because the persona follows a predetermined code rather than improvising under pressure. Write these rules down and rehearse them until they feel inevitable. Train in low-stakes environments first. Use role-play with a trusted friend or record mock scenarios alone. Simulate the anxiety of the real situation. Timeouts, interruptions, hostile questions, and perform as the persona. Repetition in controlled settings desensitizes the body to the trigger and strengthens the persona's reflexes. The first attempts will feel odd. Persistence is the currency that prevents novelty from collapsing under scrutiny when stakes rise. Use sensory triggers to lock in the switch. Smell, sound, or touch can act as powerful anchors. A particular cologne, a short instrumental cue, or a pressure point touch can be associated with the persona during practice. Over time, exposure to that sensory element in real situations will trigger a familiar state. Choose triggers wisely and sparingly so they remain effective rather than becoming background noise. Develop a short pre-performance script. This is not grand speech, but a focused set of lines that calibrate intent and attention. 3 to 5 sentences that state purpose, boundaries, and the immediate action to take are sufficient. Recite the script aloud in the moments before performance. It organizes thought and prevents panic from filling the head. The script can be flexible across contexts, but should always reassert control and clarity. Balance boldness with ethics. An alter ego must not become a license for harm or manipulation. The persona's strength should be rooted in responsibility, honesty, and respect. Use the persona to embody virtues, fortitude, clarity, discipline, not to justify arrogance or cruelty. Staying aligned with moral principles ensures the persona remains sustainable and respected by others. Practice selective integration. The alter ego should be reserved for specific domains where performance requires transformation. It might be active for presentations, negotiations, or competitive events, and dormant during personal intimacy or routine tasks. This separation prevents identity confusion and protects relationships from being overshadowed by performance demands. Clear boundaries keep the persona effective without eroding authenticity. Monitor the persona's effect on identity. Periodically journal about how performance shifts feel and whether the persona begins to leak into unwanted areas. If the alter ego becomes a default, even when low stakes demand vulnerability. Adjust the boundaries. Reflection prevents over-reliance and preserves the ability to be genuinely present outside performance contexts. Refine through feedback loops. After each activation, conduct a short review. What worked? What felt forced? Which triggers remained reliable? And which rules needed adjustment? Make notes about physiological signs, heart rate, breath, voice steadiness, and track improvement. Incremental data becomes a roadmap for tightening the persona's effectiveness without making changes that undermine its core integrity. Use visualization to pre-experience the persona under fire. Close the eyes and imagine the scenario in high detail: the room, the audience, the smells, the sounds. Picture the persona moving through the scene with composure, executing rules, and responding exactly as planned. Sensory-rich rehearsal primes the nervous system so that real performance unfolds with less surprise. The mind prepares the body before the body ever faces the situation. Accept initial awkwardness as a sign of change. Behavioral habits are deeply wired. New responses will feel foreign at first. That discomfort is the price of growth. Reframe the discomfort as evidence of neural reorganization. The more the persona is applied, the fewer moments of dissonance will appear between intent and action. Plan transitions out of the persona. Returning to private self should be ritualized to release the intensity of performance. A cooling routine, simple breath cycles, a walk, or a brief reflection helps reintegrate normal emotional range. Transition rituals keep the alter ego from permanently altering baseline mood and ensure that the performer can rest and recover. Leverage the persona for recovery too. If a performance goes poorly, the alter ego can be used to manage aftermath with dignity, apologize where necessary, extract lessons with clear-headedness, and plan corrective efforts without self-flagellation. The persona's discipline becomes a stabilizer, preventing shame from spiraling into avoidance. Adapt the persona as skills evolve. Strengths and weaknesses discovered in feedback should inform the next version of the persona. Maybe more warmth is required in certain contexts. Perhaps sharper brevity is needed elsewhere. Continuous refinement keeps the tool responsive rather than stale. Performance is an iterative craft, and the alter ego must be tuned like any instrument. Guard against over-identification. The persona is a suit. Put it on when needed, and take it off when the work is done. Pride in the persona's performance is healthy. Confusion about whether the persona is the whole self is hazardous. Maintain core practices that reconnect to personal values and relationships, independent of professional role. Invite trusted allies into the practice. A mentor, coach, or partner can provide perspective and safety during rehearsals. Constructive critique from people who care about long-term well-being prevents the persona from skewing toward toxicity. Supportive observers speed learning while preserving accountability. Eventually, the alter ego becomes less of a mask and more of an instrument, a trained response repertoire that can be activated with precision. Its purpose is to bridge the gap between intention and execution when anxiety, doubt, or ego interfere. Under pressure, the persona provides a script and a structure that the body can perform without surrendering authenticity. The real triumph is that consistent use of the tool trains original identity to adopt the best of the persona's habits, making fear a smaller factor in daily life. Wear the persona with dignity. It should uplift conduct, not diminish humanity. When employed thoughtfully, it provides access to confidence that is disciplined rather than performative. The actor, athlete, and leader all recognize that peak performance is a practice state. Creating an alter ego is simply an advanced method of practice, one that designs courage into ritual, structure, and habit so that performance becomes reliable, repeatable, and grounded in purpose. Number 7. Practice ruthless authenticity in conversations. Authenticity in conversation is often misunderstood as being polite, agreeable, or cautious. Most people shy away from honesty because they fear rejection, conflict, or judgment. Yet true power in communication comes from ruthless authenticity, the courage to speak truth clearly, directly, and without unnecessary compromise. It is not cruelty, it is clarity. Every conversation becomes an instrument for precision, influence, and alignment, when you stop performing for approval and start expressing reality as you perceive it. The person who communicates with ruthless authenticity gains trust, commands attention, and shapes relationships on their terms because they are predictable in integrity and unshakable in conviction. The first step toward ruthless authenticity is self-knowledge. You cannot speak clearly if you do not understand your own values, intentions, and boundaries. Spend time identifying what you truly believe, what you will tolerate, and what is non-negotiable. Awareness of your internal compass allows you to speak confidently without hesitation. People sense uncertainty more than they sense words. Clarity of self produces clarity of speech. Without this internal alignment, attempts at honesty will be muddled, apologetic, or diluted. Ruthless authenticity demands the elimination of unnecessary filters. Most conversations are cluttered with social safety nets, phrases designed to soften statements or make the speaker appear agreeable. Phrases like maybe, I guess, just saying, or if that's okay dilute intent and invite doubt. When you remove these modifiers, every statement gains weight. Speak with decisiveness. This does not mean aggression. It means your communication mirrors your internal certainty. The fewer hedges you use, the more the listener trusts that your words are deliberate. Listening is equally critical. Authenticity is not only about speaking your truth, but understanding the truth of others. Ruthless authenticity requires fully hearing what is said without filtering through ego, expectation, or distraction. True listening allows you to respond with relevance and integrity. Interrupting or ignoring context weakens credibility. When you respond only after fully understanding, your words carry the precision of someone aligned with both reality and intention. Vulnerability is a core component of authenticity. To speak truth ruthlessly, you must be willing to risk discomfort. Sharing genuine opinions, admitting mistakes, or acknowledging limitations can feel exposing, but these moments create connection. People intuitively recognize courage. The person willing to be seen fully commands respect because pretense is rare and obvious. Authenticity without vulnerability becomes bluntness. Vulnerability without clarity becomes weakness. The balance between honesty and courage is where communication transforms into influence. Ruthless authenticity requires rejecting the impulse to perform. Many conversations are rehearsed, manipulative, or driven by the desire to impress. When the primary goal shifts from impression to integrity, interactions become purposeful. This does not mean you ignore tact, but you no longer prioritize approval over truth. Statements are made because they are necessary, meaningful, or corrective, not to win favor or avoid tension. That distinction creates trust over time. People know where you stand and can rely on your words to reflect reality rather than convenience. Nonverbal cues amplify authenticity. Posture, eye contact, gestures, and tone communicate as much as language. Inauthentic speech is often betrayed by nervous gestures, inconsistent tone, or avoidance of eye contact. Cultivating a calm, aligned body language reinforces the verbal message. The listener does not hear only your words, they experience your presence. Ruthless authenticity requires congruence between mind, voice, and body. When all three align, influence becomes unavoidable because the whole self signals honesty. Setting boundaries is central to this approach. Authenticity is not permissive, it is selective. Know when to speak and when silence communicates more than words. Protect your energy from conversations that serve no purpose or compromise your integrity. Boundaries are communicated not only through refusal, but through clarity and expression. Saying no without hesitation or apology signals self-respect. People will adjust to the standard you establish because authenticity thrives in consistency. Ruthless authenticity also means embracing directness. Avoid vague language or passive aggression. State observations without embellishment. Provide feedback without sugarcoating. And ask questions that clarify rather than defer. Direct communication reduces misunderstanding, builds accountability, and accelerates action. The goal is not to dominate others, but to eliminate ambiguity so that decisions, expectations, and responsibilities are clear. Precision in language mirrors precision in thought. To cultivate this skill, practice in low-stakes interactions. Start conversations with honesty about minor topics. Observe how clarity impacts connection, how hesitation affects credibility, and how consistent boundaries influence respect. As confidence grows, apply the principles to higher stakes discussions. Mastery comes through repetition. Each conversation is an opportunity to refine alignment between thought, word, and presence. Ruthless authenticity is not innate for most. It is trained through persistent practice. Emotional regulation is essential. Authentic communication can trigger defensiveness, anger, or misinterpretation. Detach from immediate reaction while remaining present. The goal is to speak truth without allowing emotion to distort delivery. Calmness under pressure strengthens the impact of honesty. When the speaker's mind is steady, the message becomes anchored in reality rather than lost in emotional turbulence. Presence supports authenticity, and authenticity reinforces presence in a self-reinforcing cycle. Strategic reflection enhances the practice. After challenging conversations, review both the content and the process. Did your words reflect your true perspective? Did your delivery reinforce or undermine credibility? Did you maintain alignment between intention and expression? Reflection identifies blind spots, uncovers patterns, and sharpens precision for future encounters. Ruthless authenticity grows not from instinct alone, but from disciplined refinement over time. Authenticity carries accountability. When you speak clearly, others hear the responsibility in your words. This builds respect because people trust that your statements are deliberate, considered, and actionable. Avoid using authenticity as an excuse for insensitivity. Power lies in alignment, not in unrestrained expression. The ethical application of truth strengthens influence, whereas reckless honesty erodes it. Consistency and integrity creates an invisible reputation that precedes every interaction. Language matters. Words should be precise, intentional, and contextually appropriate. Avoid exaggeration or abstraction that can distort meaning. The goal is comprehension and clarity, not verbosity or dramatization. Ruthless authenticity thrives on simplicity. Each sentence carries intention. Each pause reinforces thought. When words are measured, the listener invests attention, processing meaning rather than noise. Observation of outcomes reinforces learning. Notice how honesty shapes relationships, decision-making, and trust. Notice which words foster clarity, which create resistance, and which establish alignment. This feedback loop informs future choices. Ruthless authenticity is adaptive, not rigid. While integrity is non-negotiable, tone, timing, and framing can be adjusted to maximize clarity without compromising truth. Finally, integrate authenticity into identity rather than treating it as a tactic. When honesty becomes a habit of thought and expression, it no longer requires effort or performance. Conversations flow from a place of grounded certainty, and presence radiates authority without aggression. The individual who practices ruthless authenticity consistently is understood, trusted, and respected because their words always match intention. This alignment creates influence that is natural, sustainable, and unshakable, transforming each interaction into a demonstration of clarity, courage, and self-mastery. Number 8. Visualize victory before every challenge. The mind is the most powerful tool for shaping reality, and it is often underestimated in its capacity to determine outcomes before action even begins. Visualization is not mere daydreaming. It is deliberate mental rehearsal that programs the nervous system for success. By vividly imagining victory before every challenge, you prime your mind, body, and spirit to act in alignment with your goals. Every thought, every sensory detail, every imagined motion strengthens neural pathways that prepare you for actual performance. When you see success clearly in advance, your actions naturally follow the blueprint created in the mind. Before engaging in any high-stakes scenario, whether it is a presentation, competition, negotiation, or personal challenge, take the time to construct a detailed mental image of the desired outcome. Visualize not only the external victory but the internal process, the focus, confidence, and discipline required to achieve it. Picture the exact environment, the sounds, the smells, the temperature, the movements of those around you. The brain does not fully distinguish between lived experience and vividly imagined experience. This means that mental rehearsal builds both confidence and familiarity, reducing fear and hesitation when confronted with reality. Every sense should be engaged during visualization. See the colors and shapes of the surroundings clearly. Hear the tones of your own voice and the responses of others. Feel the textures beneath your hands or the rhythm of your movements. Smell and even taste the environment if relevant. The more sensory detail you incorporate, the more your nervous system is convinced that this victory is tangible. This multisensory approach strengthens the mind-body connection, ensuring that physical performance aligns as mental expectation. Visualizing victory is not only about imagining the end result, but also about rehearsing the process. Picture yourself executing every step with precision, overcoming obstacles, and maintaining composure under pressure. Anticipate challenges and visualize yourself navigating them calmly and effectively. This preparation reduces the likelihood of panic or doubt because the mind has already experienced success in its entirety, including the moments of friction that often derail performance. The brain enters the situation with muscle memory and strategic clarity already in place. Incorporate emotional intensity into the visualization. Imagine the sense of accomplishment, pride, and relief that comes with achieving your goal. Let the feeling of success permeate your body, the rush of adrenaline, the tightening of muscles and focus, the expansion of chest and confidence. Emotions amplify the effect of mental rehearsal. By associating victory with strong, positive feelings, the mind becomes conditioned to respond with courage and energy in real scenarios. Emotion is the catalyst that transforms imagined outcomes into tangible performance. Routine is critical. Visualization should become a habitual prelude to any challenge. Just as athletes warm up muscles before physical exertion, the mind requires preparation for high-pressure action. Create a consistent ritual. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and mentally rehearse the full scenario from start to finish. Repeat this process daily or immediately before a challenge. Over time, the ritual becomes automatic, and the mind enters a heightened state of readiness almost effortlessly. The more you practice, the more instinctive the response becomes. Visualization strengthens resilience by pre-experiencing setbacks in a controlled mental environment. Anticipate potential obstacles, missteps, or errors, and see yourself overcoming them gracefully. By mentally confronting adversity, you reduce the shock of encountering it in reality. Your brain develops confidence that challenges are surmountable, which translates into calm, decisive action when actual obstacles arise. Victory is not imagined as effortless. It is rehearsed as deliberate, disciplined, and achievable. Pair visualization with physical rehearsal when possible. Engage your body alongside the mind by practicing movements, gestures, or techniques in tandem with the mental scenario. Physical motion enhances neural encoding of the imagined outcome, creating a seamless connection between intention and action. Even subtle movements, like hand gestures, posture, or breathing patterns, reinforce the visualization and accelerate the alignment of mind and body. The brain begins to treat mental rehearsal as training, bridging imagination and reality. Positive language enhances the visualization process. Internally narrate the scenario using affirming, assertive, and precise terms. Replace uncertainty with confidence. I will execute flawlessly rather than I hope it goes well. Linguistic precision strengthens mental conviction and prevents hesitation. Your internal dialogue becomes a script that guides every action, reducing ambiguity and amplifying clarity under pressure. Words are not just thoughts, they are commands to the nervous system. Visualization also improves focus. The act of imagining victory requires total concentration on relevant details, cutting out distractions. This practice strengthens attention control, making it easier to maintain mental clarity during actual performance. Distractions are less likely to disrupt action because the mind has been trained to prioritize the steps necessary for success. Focus visualization teaches selective attention, the skill of isolating what matters from the noise that surrounds you. Over time, visualization builds expectation of success. The mind becomes familiar with victory, reducing fear and doubt. When challenges arise, you approach them with confidence, not because circumstances guarantee outcome, but because your mental rehearsal has programmed the belief that success is achievable and repeatable. This expectation does not create arrogance. It fosters certainty, allowing you to act decisively rather than hesitating under pressure. Visualization strengthens emotional regulation. By repeatedly imagining high-stakes scenarios, including obstacles and pressure, you condition the mind to remain composed. Anxiety is diminished because the brain has already rehearsed coping strategies and successful navigation. Fear loses its power, replaced by readiness. The practice of mentally winning trains the nervous system to respond with poise, reducing impulsive reactions and elevating deliberate action. Consistency in visualization ensures durability. Short, sporadic sessions create fleeting effects. Extended, deliberate practice builds deep neural pathways that anchor confidence, focus, and emotional control. The longer and more detailed the visualization, the stronger the mental rehearsal. Over time, the act of imagining victory becomes second nature, automatically setting the stage for optimal performance whenever a challenge arises. Integration with actual performance amplifies results. After visualizing, move into action immediately. Mental rehearsal alone builds expectation, but combining it with deliberate execution solidifies the connection between imagination and reality. Every successful execution reinforces belief, creating a feedback loop where visualization enhances performance and performance reinforces visualization. This iterative cycle compounds growth over time. Visualization also encourages proactive problem solving. When you mentally rehearse scenarios, the mind identifies weak points and potential solutions before they manifest in reality. This foresight allows for preemptive adjustments, reducing mistakes and increasing efficiency. Challenges are no longer surprises. They are opportunities rehearsed and prepared for in advance. Mental rehearsal turns uncertainty into strategy. Incorporate mindfulness into visualization. Presence during the mental rehearsal ensures engagement and realism. Avoid mechanical imagining. Immerse fully in the scene. Feel the body, hear the sounds, and experience the emotions. Mindful visualization is more effective because it activates the same neural circuits that will be used in actual performance, bridging imagination and execution. Presence enhances clarity, confidence, and responsiveness. Ultimately, visualization of victory is a form of mental ownership. By repeatedly experiencing success in the mind, you claim it before it occurs in reality. This mental ownership creates alignment between desire, preparation, and execution. Every action becomes guided by a pre-established blueprint of excellence. When the moment of truth arrives, the path to victory is familiar, rehearsed, and within reach. Visualizing victory before every challenge is a discipline that cultivates foresight, confidence, and composure. It transforms fear into preparation, uncertainty into strategy, and doubt into clarity. The practice strengthens the mind, primes the body, and conditions the spirit to respond with precision under pressure. When the mind is trained to see success first, the body follows instinctively. Actions align with intention, and performance becomes both natural and inevitable. Victory is no longer a matter of chance. It is a rehearsed, embodied reality waiting to unfold. Number 9. Use discomfort as growth compass. Discomfort is often avoided at all costs, treated as an enemy rather than a teacher. Yet, it is precisely in those moments of unease that growth is born. Discomfort signals boundaries, exposes weakness, and illuminates opportunities for transformation. Every physical tension, every mental resistance, every moment of emotional unease carries a message. This is where change begins. The person who learns to interpret discomfort as a compass no longer fears challenge. They welcome it as guide. Growth is rarely comfortable, and mastery is always forged in friction. To use discomfort effectively, the first step is awareness. Notice when you feel resistance, tension, or fear. Pay attention to your body, your thoughts, and your impulses. Discomfort often manifests physically: tight shoulders, shallow breathing, restless movement, or mentally racing thoughts, self-doubt, procrastination. Do not resist these signals. They are pointing to the exact areas where growth is required. Each pang of discomfort is an invitation to step forward, to engage with what you have avoided or underestimated. Reframe the narrative around pain and unease. Instead of viewing discomfort as a warning to retreat, see it as a guidepost for action. The mind interprets avoidance as safety, but safety rarely expands potential. When you shift perspective, fear becomes information rather than limitation. Discomfort identifies the edges of competence and highlights where attention is needed. The body and mind respond differently when the same signal is interpreted as guidance rather than threat. A small shift in framing converts paralysis into momentum. Action in the face of discomfort is deliberate practice. Growth is not achieved by waiting for ease. It is realized by stepping into the space that challenges you. Speak in situations where silence feels safest. Take on tasks that feel overwhelming. Engage in exercises that strain skills or patience. Every act of choice in the presence of discomfort strengthens resilience. The more consistently you act despite resistance, the less paralyzing it becomes. The mind learns that discomfort does not equal catastrophe. It equals evolution. Reflection is critical. After encountering discomfort, analyze the experience. What triggered unease? How did you respond physically and mentally? What lessons can be extracted for future challenges? Reflection converts raw experience into actionable intelligence. Without this step, discomfort becomes mere suffering. With it, every challenge transforms into a roadmap for improvement. Each insight builds a foundation for the next level of mastery. Embrace physical discomfort as well. Growth is often embodied. Push the body beyond habitual limits through exercise, cold exposure, fasting, or extended focus sessions. These experiences teach control, endurance, and tolerance of temporary stress. The nervous system becomes conditioned to handle strain without panic. Physical adaptation mirrors mental adaptation. Both thrive when discomfort is approached intentionally. Each moment of physical strain becomes a rehearsal for handling psychological or emotional friction. Emotional discomfort must be met with honesty and presence. Difficult conversations, confrontation, and vulnerability provoke resistance. Leaning into these moments rather than avoiding them strengthens relational intelligence and emotional resilience. Uncomfortable emotions are not obstacles. They are signals highlighting areas where courage and empathy are required. Each encounter is a microcosm of growth. Observing feelings, tolerating intensity, and responding intentionally trains both awareness and composure. Mental discomfort, such as facing uncertainty, complexity, or failure, offers the most profound lessons. The mind seeks control and certainty, so moments of ambiguity provoke anxiety. Approach these challenges deliberately. Study unfamiliar problems, explore difficult ideas, and confront tasks that stretch cognitive limits. Discomfort in thinking builds problem-solving ability, creativity, and strategic flexibility. Each time you tolerate mental strain, neural pathways strengthen, enhancing adaptability and decision-making under pressure. Discomfort also serves as a compass for authenticity. Unease often emerges when you are misaligned with values, purpose, or intention. Listen carefully to moments of tension in interactions, decisions, or environments. They highlight where compromise, pretense, or avoidance exists. By tracing the source of discomfort, you identify areas where authenticity has been neglected. Acting in accordance with your principles frequently provokes unease initially, but it also leads to confidence, credibility, and alignment. Routine exposure compounds growth. Like a muscle, tolerance of discomfort strengthens with repeated, progressive stress. Schedule challenges deliberately. Choose the tasks, situations, or conversations that push boundaries incrementally. Avoiding discomfort delays progress. Consistent exposure accelerates mastery. The process is cumulative. Small daily acts of courage create resilience that magnifies in significant moments. The nervous system, mind, and character adapt to endure and perform under tension. Observe patterns of avoidance. Notice where you habitually retreat from challenge. These patterns mark blind spots in skill, courage, or judgment. Confronting them directly is uncomfortable, but essential. Growth occurs not in comfort zones, but precisely where habit and fear collide. Each encounter with previously avoided tasks teaches self-reliance, initiative, and mastery over instinctive reaction. Discomfort becomes a mirror, revealing both weaknesses and potential. Language shapes perception. Reframe internal dialogue to align with opportunity rather than threat. Replace "I can't handle this" with "this is exactly where I grow." Replace "this is too hard" with "this is the direction of strength." Words affect both thought and physiology. Repetition of constructive, challenge-oriented language trains the mind to perceive discomfort as a signal for growth, instead of a barrier. The narrative you tell yourself determines whether friction becomes fear or fuel. Discomfort demands presence. Avoiding distraction or numbing behaviors is critical. The mind naturally seeks escape from tension through rationalization, procrastination, or entertainment. Instead, confront the moment fully, feel the tension, name the resistance, and act with intentionality. Presence amplifies learning and ensures that each encounter with unease is fully integrated into skill, awareness, and confidence. Discomfort also fosters humility and curiosity. Being uncomfortable often exposes gaps in knowledge, skill, or perspective. Rather than resisting, approach these moments as invitations to learn. Curiosity softens fear and transforms tension into exploration. The process of investigating the source of discomfort cultivates intelligence, adaptability, and openness. Every difficult experience becomes a laboratory for self-improvement and strategic insight. Persistence is critical. Growth through discomfort is rarely instantaneous. It accumulates over time, requiring repeated engagement with the edges of ability. Patience strengthens endurance, and continued exposure rewires instinctual responses. The person who persists despite unease develops both tolerance and proficiency, eventually moving through challenges with composure, decisiveness, and confidence that were previously unimaginable. Integration is essential. Discomfort should inform decision-making, behavior, and habit formation. Use each encounter to calibrate effort, refine strategy, and expand capability. The lessons extracted from unease become building blocks for more complex challenges. Over time, the accumulation of experience with discomfort creates an internal compass, instinctively recognizing what actions advance growth and which maintain stagnation. Trust the process. Avoid the temptation to shortcut discomfort. True growth requires presence, reflection, and repeated engagement with tension. There is no replacement for facing resistance directly. The path of least resistance offers comfort, but limits potential. Discomfort is the signpost, the guide, and the fuel for evolution. Embracing it consistently transforms struggle into momentum, pain into insight, and resistance into mastery. Ultimately, using discomfort as a growth compass redefines challenges from obstacles into opportunities. Every pang of tension, fear, or unease becomes a directional indicator, guiding focus towards skill development, self-awareness, and resilience. Life unfolds along edges of discomfort. Those who learn to read its signals navigate with purpose, rather than avoidance. Growth is inseparable from friction, and discomfort is the compass that points unerringly toward mastery, confidence, and the fullest expression of potential. Number 10. Destroy doubt with disciplined action. Doubt is a shadow that creeps into every mind, whispering hesitation, second-guessing, and delay. It paralyzes potential and erodes confidence, making even the simplest decisions feel monumental. The antidote to doubt is not idle reflection, argument, or inspiration alone. It is disciplined action. Action transforms uncertainty into clarity, hesitation into momentum, and fear into measurable progress. Every deliberate step, no matter how small, undermines doubt and strengthens conviction. Mastery emerges not from waiting for certainty, but from moving purposefully despite it. The first principle of destroying doubt is consistency. Discipline is the framework that converts intention into reality. When actions are repeated systematically, they create patterns that reinforce belief and competence. The mind perceives repeated behavior as evidence of capability. Each completed task, no matter how minor, signals capability and builds cumulative trust in your own ability. Doubt shrinks with every habit performed, because evidence overrides speculation. Confidence is generated through proof, and proof comes from relentless, consistent execution. Preparation amplifies the effect of action. Thoughtful planning lays the foundation for disciplined movement, reducing hesitation and increasing efficiency. Break goals into specific, actionable steps. When doubt arises, the path forward is clear because preparation has pre-mapped the terrain. This alignment between intention and execution allows momentum to take root. Each step forward becomes less daunting because the uncertainty that once fueled hesitation has been neutralized by tangible action. Action must be immediate. Procrastination is doubt's ally. Every delay strengthens uncertainty. Begin with what is within reach, even if imperfect. The act of starting triggers physiological and psychological changes. The brain interprets motion as progress, which releases chemicals that reinforce motivation and calm anxiety. The body's movement signals to the mind that fear is not in control. Momentum grows organically from the first deliberate action, creating a positive feedback loop that continually undermines hesitation. Small wins matter. Doubt thrives in a vacuum of accomplishment. Every completed task, solved problem, or step forward generates tangible proof that you are capable. These incremental victories accumulate and form a foundation of evidence that doubt cannot easily erode. Celebrate these wins privately, using them to reinforce belief in your competence. The discipline of consistently acting, even in minor areas, compounds into mastery over time. Clarity of focus strengthens disciplined action. Ambiguity fosters hesitation, giving doubt fertile ground to grow. Identify the highest priority tasks that have the most meaningful impact and commit to completing them first. Eliminate distractions and peripheral concerns. Focused action channels energy efficiently and produces results that validate effort. Each clear step toward a defined outcome erodes uncertainty, replacing it with tangible proof of progress. Rituals anchor discipline. Habits reduce the cognitive load of decision-making, allowing action to occur automatically and reliably. Morning routines, scheduled practice sessions, or consistent review periods are examples of structures that support persistent action. By automating behavior, you prevent doubt from infiltrating moments of choice. The nervous system becomes conditioned to act without overthinking, reinforcing the mind's capacity to follow through in both routine and high-stakes situations. Accountability amplifies execution. External structures, whether mentors, peers, or deadlines, force action when internal resistance rises. Doubt often thrives in isolation, where the mind can rationalize inaction. By introducing accountability, you create pressure to move beyond speculation and uncertainty. The combination of personal discipline and external reinforcement generates unstoppable forward momentum, systematically eradicating hesitation and reinforcing self-reliance. Persistence under resistance is essential. Doubt intensifies in the presence of obstacles, setbacks, or delayed results. Disciplined action means continuing despite these challenges. Each act of perseverance diminishes fear, proving to the mind that capability persists even under strain. The repeated experience of overcoming friction builds resilience. Momentum accumulates not because success is guaranteed, but because disciplined action persists in spite of uncertainty. Self-monitoring enhances the effectiveness of action. Track progress, note patterns, and reflect on the outcome of each step. When doubt arises, review past achievements and evidence of capability. Seeing the trail of completed actions reinforces confidence, providing proof that hesitation is baseless. This combination of execution and reflection creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Action generates evidence. Evidence strengthens belief. Belief fuels further action. Discipline also requires deliberate prioritization of effort over perfection. Doubt thrives when waiting for ideal circumstances or flawless execution. Action requires tolerance for imperfection and commitment to movement, regardless of completeness. Progress outweighs delay. Each step forward, even if imperfect, provides information, experience, and momentum that cannot be achieved through inaction. The pursuit of perfect conditions is a trap. Action thrives in real conditions, producing growth and eliminating uncertainty. Visualization complements action. Mentally rehearsing the process before movement primes the nervous system for execution. Imagining the sequence of steps, obstacles, and potential outcomes reduces hesitation and increases confidence in the ability to respond effectively. When combined with immediate physical action, visualization converts intention into measurable results more efficiently. Doubt finds less purchase because both mind and body are already aligned with motion. Action communicates to the subconscious mind more effectively than thought alone. The internal narrative often exaggerates risk, amplifies fear, and magnifies doubt. Behavior overrides these distortions. Each deliberate action rewrites the brain's assessment of capability. Neural pathways associated with competence are strengthened, while patterns of hesitation weaken. Discipline in execution reshapes belief systems more powerfully than any amount of motivational thinking. Timing and sequencing are critical. Disciplined action involves structuring steps logically to maximize efficiency and impact. Approaching tasks in a deliberate order reduces uncertainty and allows momentum to cascade naturally. When each step builds on the previous, progress is measurable, and doubt is systematically diminished. Strategic sequencing transforms overwhelming challenges into achievable sequences, reinforcing control and confidence. Physical and mental stamina support disciplined execution. Regular practice of endurance, focus, and resilience enhances the capacity to act consistently under pressure. The more habituated the mind and body are to sustained action, the less susceptible they become to hesitation induced by fear or doubt. Stamina ensures that execution remains reliable even in prolonged or high-stakes situations, creating a foundation for unshakable confidence. Decision-making reinforces action. Doubt often arises from indecision, which breeds hesitation and inaction. Cultivating the habit of decisive action strengthens certainty. Commit to choices swiftly based on available evidence. Take immediate steps and adjust through iterative feedback. Discipline in decision-making demonstrates to the mind that inaction is unnecessary and reinforces the belief that forward motion produces clarity and results. Discipline transforms uncertainty into rhythm. Repetition creates predictability in performance, which silences the internal dialogue of doubt. As actions become habitual, fear loses its potency. Each completed task reinforces capability, embedding competence and confidence in the nervous system. Doubt is eroded not through theory or contemplation, but through consistent, observable evidence of effective action. Reflection after action consolidates learning. Review outcomes, identify improvements, and integrate lessons into future execution. This iterative cycle strengthens both skill and confidence. The mind perceives a pattern of success emerging from deliberate movement, reinforcing the principle that action, not speculation, drives mastery. Over time, disciplined practice builds a mental architecture where doubt has no structural support, leaving only momentum, capability, and certainty. Finally, disciplined action builds identity. The person who acts consistently despite fear and uncertainty becomes someone who can be trusted by themselves and by others. Action reinforces self-perception, shaping character, confidence, and competence. Doubt cannot persist when habits, skill, and proof are aligned. Through persistent, deliberate execution, hesitation is replaced with decisive momentum, uncertainty with clarity, and fear with mastery. Action becomes the definitive weapon against doubt, transforming possibility into reality and potential into unstoppable achievement.